Christmas postponed, Amazon staff strike in Germany in a row over pay. And an ambitious plan to avert the next banking crisis in the Eurozone. Hello and welcome. You're with BBC World Business Report. I'm Sally Bundock. Also in the programme, we'll have a report from China on the rise of the virtual currency Bitcoin. But first of all, with days to go before Christmas, this is a critical time for the online retailer Amazon. Workers at some of its warehouses in Germany are well aware of that and are entering a second day of strike action. The country's biggest trade union, Verdi, is calling for higher wages for its members, and yesterday supporters rallied outside the company's headquarters in the US. Germany is Amazon's second biggest market. Our Berlin correspondent Stephen Evans has more.
It's strike day today, they chant. The banners read, "Today strike," and "for more money." This is the busiest time of year for Amazon, the run-up to Christmas, in the land where Christmas giving is big. This striker says, "I just about make it, but it's impossible to save anything or pay back any loans. It's really very, very difficult." And this man says, "I think our boss, Jeff Bezos, has such large private wealth that he might as well share it a little with the employees." Germany is the company's second biggest market after the US, and its German workers know that now is when they have the most industrial power. The Verdi union has called them out in two big centres. The disputes over money. Amazon classifies them as lower paid warehouse workers. They say they're higher paid staff in retail. The union official says Amazon should sign a new deal based on what these people do. They're in the retail business, he says, and recognising that would mean an extra €7,000 each for them. He says they should be treated better. Amazon said in a statement that it wasn't affected by the strike and that most employees had not walked out. The company has had some bad publicity in Europe recently, with a focus on conditions in some of its British distribution centres, as well as these ones in Germany. The unions say the work is poorly paid, monotonous, relentless, and the contracts are short-term. Their problem is that once Christmas is over, their industrial power weakens. And Amazon is planning new distribution centres in the lower-paid Czech Republic. The union plans a demonstration at the headquarters in Seattle in the US. It may be that their strongest card is publicity, rather than sheer industrial muscle. Stephen Evans, BBC News, Berlin.
Now, every day we entrust our life savings to them. They control more money than some European countries, and when it all goes wrong, they have the potential to bring down the world's biggest economies to their knees. We're talking about banks, and today finance ministers from the 17 countries that share the euro are aiming to thrash out an agreement to unify bank rules. They hope that giving the European Central Bank new powers to oversee and even wind up banks when they get into trouble could avert the next crisis. Well, Jane Foley is here, Senior Foreign Exchange Strategist at Rabobank. Nice to see you, Jane.
Thank you.
So the Eurozone finance ministers meet today. We've got the EU finance ministers getting together tomorrow, and then heads of state at the end of the week. So they've got to get their ducks in a row today, haven't they, ahead of the other meetings?
They do, and of course they had a meeting last week, and so we sort of know what they're going to be talking about. This is how really that they can have rules. What happens when a bank falls? What happens when it fails? What are they going to do? Now, of course, we've had the Eurozone crisis, we've had the financial crisis. We don't want a repeat of this. So this is laying out a procedure. When a bank fails, this is who's going to pay, this is what's going to happen, and this is what this is all about.
So what do we know about the procedure so far?
Well, what we know, what we've been told, is that it's likely that when a bank fails, it will initially be, for the first year at least, the home country that really has to cough up the money. But what will happen is that in the EMU countries, is every year the banks will put money into a fund. That will be the pot that will be used to help the banks out. And as that pot grows, eventually after 10 years there will be more of a unified pot, and eventually within EMU, the money that will save the banks won't just be domestic money, it will come from the unified pot.
Very briefly though, Jane, the devil is in the detail, isn't it? There's a lot of bureaucracy to overcome here.
That's exactly right. The Financial Times, for instance, wrote a story about this, and they were talking about their research saying that if a bank failed, particularly if it had branches in different countries, you could need something like 146 votes to decide what to do. So it could be the bureaucracy that really is the faltering part of this plan.
All right, thank you, Jane. Jane will return and talk us through today's papers shortly, in about 5 minutes. But let's squeeze in some more business news before we do that, because for a short time, it was more valuable than gold. 2013 has certainly been a rollercoaster ride for the virtual currency Bitcoin. In January, a single Bitcoin would set you back about $14. But the currency's rocketed in value in recent months. It's currently worth $850. It's been over $1,000 this year. Now, China's moved to regulate the market. Martin Patience reports from Beijing on the growing Bitcoin buzz.
Just to be absolutely clear, this is not a Bitcoin. Bitcoins do not exist in the physical world, and that means you can't slip them into your pocket. So what are they? Well, just as the US has the dollar, China has the yuan. Think of Bitcoins as an online currency, but not tied to any country. It's a bit like having cash, but for the online world. This Beijing cafe has been at the center of the Bitcoin buzz in China. Part of the attraction for investors like Jin Yang is the gobsmacking returns in recent months. She owns an astonishing $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, but she says her investment is a bit of fun.
I just thought this was a new thing that I had to invest. I'd rather make a mistake than miss an opportunity. No matter what happens, I can at least say that I was a player in the process.
Investors in China have limited options where to put their money. And many analysts believe that short-term speculation is fueling the Bitcoin market and that it could all end in tears.
I think Bitcoin is a real risk. I don't think they have much value, but I haven't bought any. I'm inclined to think it is a bubble.
As a computer programmer, I believe in the power and the idea of Bitcoins. I'm optimistic about their long-term development.
So are Bitcoins a load of financial froth? Well, Bitcoin believers say what they represent is a new way of doing business. China's authorities aren't so sure. They haven't banned Bitcoins outright, but they say that the banks can no longer carry out transactions. As for critics, they say what we're seeing is an almighty bubble. Martin Patience, BBC News, Beijing.
Other stories, it's decision time again for the Federal Reserve's committee. They'll decide whether to cut back on the billions of extra dollars they've been pumping into the US economy. Signs that firms are hiring and Americans are shopping may mean it's time for central bankers to take the world's biggest economy off life support. Some now fear all that extra money sloshing around could push up prices and stoke inflation. The Beatles, as you've never heard them before, 59 bootleg recordings and demo tapes are released today. They include early versions of I Saw Her Standing There and She Loves You. The release isn't just a treat for fans. The record company needs to give the tracks an official release to protect the copyright for a further 70 years and continue to make money out of them. So the markets understandably are very much focused on the Federal Reserve. Today is day one of a two-day meeting in Asia. You can see we've seen gains right across the board, which is encouraging because yesterday it was completely the opposite story. The market to a great degree has already priced in the negative side of drawing back on stimulus. Now they're looking ahead to the fact that the US economy is in a much healthier state. That's the close in the US, which always bodes well for a better day in Asia. That's all from me for the time being. I'll see you in a minute as we talk you through the papers.